First off, I want to thank the committee for giving me the Lifetime Achievement Award. And I want to thank them and the sponsors of the conference for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you today during the meeting. In trying to decide how to use my allotted 20 minutes, I decided I would most prefer to spend the time, the bulk of the time, talking about the wonderful contributions, the very brave, creative contributions of this generation of investigators. Now, I can't mention all of them or describe their work, but I will get as far as I can in 20 minutes, and probably the rest of the time, instead of talking to the camera, I will use the article I'm writing to thank everyone else. I want to begin with the wonderful work, very creative, brave work of Carolyn Hafer. Carolyn did some research that, as closely as I can recall, as I have ever seen, demonstrated the basic hypotheses underlying the just world theory. As some of you may recall, the theory that in the research we developed in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s was basically the idea that each of us, to a greater or lesser extent, but mostly to a greater extent, makes a commitment to living by deserving and justice. And to maintain that commitment, we need to believe we live in a world in which people get what they deserve. In other words, they deserve what they get. Now, that's a very important, fundamental part of our lives. We did some research to that effect, and it was encouraging enough to be accepted as a reasonable hypothesis. But Carolyn Hafer's work, and that of the others I'm going to mention, really did a great deal to confirm that essential hypothesis. She presented her students with a videotape, very compelling, vivid videotape that described someone, another student I believe, who had been robbed and beaten, the victim. Some of the participants were led to believe that the perpetrators had been captured and punished, and some were led to believe that the perpetrators had gotten away scot-free. Greater or lesser injustice. Capturing and punishing the inflictors, the perpetrators, reestablished a bit of justice. Subsequently, all the participants were put in a task in the apparently second experiment, in which they were to identify the color of stimulus words as rapid as possibly by pressing a key when they saw a particular color, let's say pink. As soon as they saw a pink stimulus, they were to press the button, a key. This task that had been used by Stroop has demonstrated that if the content of the stimulus is relevant, important to the perceiver, it will interfere with the speed of recognition. And this interference occurs typically, or at least often, at pre-threshold levels, right at the threshold or below. In her experiment, she used words denoting deserving and justice, as well as appropriate control words of equal length and frequency in the language, such as content of the story they were just presented, aggression words, etc. They were the control words. What she found in more than one experiment was that those participants who witnessed greater injustice showed considerably more measurable interference with their identifying of the color of a word if it was a deserving word, a word that denoted deserving injustice. Considerably more interference than any of the other control words. In other words, the participants were preoccupied with their concerns with justice. And that interfered with the color identification. She also showed that in the condition where the greatest injustice still persisted, that is, where the participants believed the perpetrators had gotten off scot-free, the interference was not only greatest, but it was correlated with their evaluation of the poor victim. The greater the interference, the more negatively they evaluated the victim. Those findings in that experiment, I think I've gotten them accurate, those findings were very nicely confirming of two things. Actually, more than that. One is, witnessing an injustice makes people concerned with injustice in ways and to a degree that they are not consciously aware of. This occurs preconsciously, and it happens automatically. And this concern with justice can also be related to the way they evaluate the victim. In this case, more negatively. Now, the automatic reaction to an injustice, these automatic reactions to an injustice, can be modified by later, more conscious thought if people have the time, the incentive, and the motive and the cognitive resources to modify the response. But the initial automatic response at witnessing an injustice is a pre-conscious concern with seeing that justice is established. Now, this research, published in JPSP in 2000, was sufficiently compelling and intriguing to lead a group of investigators in Lisbon, Portugal, under the leadership and inspiration of Isabel Correia. This included Patricia Aguiar and Jorge Valla. But Isabel was the prime mover in this research. They used the same method that Carolyn Hafer had used. And this time, though, the stimulus, the injustice, was vividly portrayed by the image and the story behind a child who had lost both arms through touching a high-powered cable while trying to retrieve a soccer ball. Now, Correia and her group varied the injustice of this event by having some of the participants believe that the child had been warned not to approach the high voltage wire, to avoid it as much as possible. Others were given no such belief, and as far as they were concerned, the child was completely innocent when he touched the wire and lost his arms. Greater injustice for that innocent victim, less perceived injustice would be the hypothesis for the reckless, careless child, although it's very difficult to reject a child. But it is possible to blame them. The results using the color identification task, the Stroop effect, confirmed this unconscious process. The reckless child, witnessing the reckless child, led to considerably less interference in the Stroop task than becoming aware of the completely innocent child. Correia and her group also varied the amount of injustice by informing some of the participants that the victim was actually a gypsy child. In Portugal, gypsies are a derogated minority group. Subsequently, their responses in the color identification task were significantly less interfered with than when the child was identified as one of the majority group. it wasn't so bad. The injustice wasn't so great if the child was from the minority group. Subsequent research also showed that the conditions leading to the greatest injustice, innocent child versus reckless, led to the participants revealing implicit derogation of this poor victimized child. Again, very nicely confirming the basic hypothesis that witnessing an injustice leads people to care about justice in ways they don't even realize and can manifest itself in derogation of the victim. That line of research led Mitch Callan, as well as other things, John Ellard and their students and colleagues to do a series of equally brave experiments pursuing the very same fundamental hypothesis. People are motivated to believe that people deserve what happens to them and they get what they deserve. The research they did involved several situations, and the first part of it, published in PSPB 2007, involved the issue of imminent justice. In that research, Mitch Callan and his colleagues had his participants read the story, become aware of someone who had won a lottery in one of the experiments. They were led to believe prior to that that the winner was either a very nice person, generous, or had been stingy and mean, relatively speaking. When asked to what extent the person, the winner, was somehow responsible for winning the lottery, the desirable outcome, they responded by stating that the good person was more responsible. Their behavior was more responsible in measurable ways for winning the lottery. The good person's acts led to the good outcome. In another experiment, they described someone who'd been in a terrible automobile accident, and just prior to that accident, the person had either had an illicit affair with someone or done something reasonably decent, normal. The participants were asked subsequently, to what extent did the person's prior behavior influence their having an accident? And lo and behold, the participants who believed the person had done something bad believed his behavior was somehow connected, causally, to their having this terrible outcome. Bad things happen to bad people. Good things happen to good people. Is this a function of justice, injustice? Well, to confirm the role that justice, their desire for justice played in the participants' reactions to what they had just witnessed, read, Callan and the others did an experiment in which they had some of the participants witness a videotape of a young woman who had been inflicted with HIV virus. Accidentally. Some of them were led to believe that she was going to suffer for a while, considerably. Others were led to believe that essentially most of her suffering was ended and under control. Greater or less suffering accidentally inflicted. Subsequently, they were given a story of a young woman who had been very nasty, cruel to other women. And they learned that she had been disfigured in a fire. They were asked to then evaluate the extent to which her prior cruel behavior, her prior behavior was responsible in some way, contributed to her having the accident, becoming disfigured. The participants who had previously witnessed the greater injustice saw the victim as more culpable for her own fate. Her prior behavior had contributed more to her suffering. Again, a very nice confirmation of the fact that the participants wanted to believe that bad things happen to bad people. Now, there is a lot more research, and I don't have any more time. I was just signaled I don't have much more time, but I want to allude to briefly the wonderful work that Mitch Callan and John Ellard and Kay and Nickel did, showing the importance of justice and the desire for justice in the way people remember and recall events. They want to remember events as reflecting the fact that good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. So what happens if they discover that someone has won a large lottery? And they learn, in some conditions, that the person was very nice, a generous, caring person, or that the winner was something of a skunk, a very nasty, undesirable person. What happens to their memory of the amount they won in the lottery? In a very brave experiment, Callan showed that people would remember the bad person as having won considerably less than the good person. Interesting. They actually altered their memory of the size of the desirable thing that happened to a bad person, a person who didn't deserve it. This effect was greatly enhanced if the participants again witnessed just prior to the learning of the lottery winning. This effect was enhanced if they saw the Carrie videotape, the young woman suffering. When this young woman was suffering greatly because of an injustice, that led to greater influence on the extent to which they altered their memory of the amount that the bad person has won. The greater suffering of Carrie led to their lessening the amount in significant ways that they believed the bad person had won in the lottery. This research showing the effect of the desire for justice on people's recall also appeared in participants' memory related to their own behavior. Not only did the participants' chance outcome, influence their memories for how good or bad a person they had been in the recent past. If you made their good deeds salient, or their past misdeeds salient within the past month, they were more likely to judge a corresponding chance outcome as fair. That is, if they lost a coin flip versus won a desired outcome as a function of a coin flip, they are more likely to believe using a coin flip to determine outcomes was fair if they had recalled past good deeds. If they had recalled past misdeeds, they were more likely to recall using a coin flip as relatively fair if they had lost the desired outcome as a function of the coin flip rather than having won it. I think those are remarkable, fascinating findings. In fact, I think all of the findings of this research have been fascinating and very important, showing the pervasive, if you will, insidious, but measurable influence of these automatic reactions at the preconscious level caused by people's desire to see that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. There's a lot more of their research that I could be talking about, but I don't have the time. And there's lots more, a great deal more of other very important research, especially the work that's been done by Claudia Dalbert on the positive, constructive effects of this belief, need to believe in a just world. But I must stop now, and I want to again thank the members of the committee and thank all of you for giving me this time. I believe it's during your lunchtime to listen to watch what I have to say and give me the chance to express my appreciation for my award and for the work of these wonderfully creative investigators. Thank you.